All right, well, with the technical difficulties over there, we'll go ahead and get started on this side, and I'll keep playing to see if I can get it to stream, because I know some people were going to join us that way. But let's go ahead and get started here for all of the 102 folks that are in the room. So welcome, everyone. My name is Eva Matthews-Lark. I am the program manager of Hog Island Audubon Camp in Maine. And this is our Making Bird Connections lecture series, where we bring a bird-focused presentation to you each week, Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. These presentations are free, but donations are encouraged to help fund our programs. I want to thank everyone that has already donated. We see you. We appreciate your support. And I also hope that you consider checking out our other programs at our website, hogisland.audubon.org. Tonight, I'm proud to present Jillian Bell. She is joining us to discuss bird-friendly communities and her work at Connecticut Audubon, where she is the Bird-Friendly Communities Program Associate. Jillian has worked with over 30 schools in Connecticut and New York to create green schoolyards and is currently leading workshops for people interested in adding native plants to their home spaces. In her off time, Jillian has been known to kayak over to Hog Island and has visited the camp on many occasions. Jillian, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Eva. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm just going to confirm, Eva, that you see it. Great, thank you. All right, so here we go. Hi, everybody. Thanks again for joining us tonight. I know there's millions of different things that you could be doing, and I appreciate you being here with us. So before I begin, I want to introduce myself. I'm Jillian Bell. Y'all can call me Jill if you like. And I'm the Bird Friendly Communities Program Coordinator here at Audubon, Connecticut, New York. And if you follow that little green arrow, that is me. I'm in the 4th grade in this picture, and I have a little tree that I have been given to plant. So my work in the Schoolyard Habitat program especially fits dearly in my heart. I've been all about making the outdoors safer and more healthy for all animals since I was little. So Audubon has 5 conservation strategy work streams, and I'm on the BFC team, like I was mentioning. And our Bird-Friendly Communities Conservation Strategy works to meet birds' needs in the places that we share with them, specifically by providing food, shelter, safe passage, and places to raise their young. We know that if we make our communities better for birds, we also make them better for people. And this is the area that I work in specifically, Audubon, Connecticut, and New York. And in dark gray, you'll see our chapters. And the centers are the orangey red. We have offices at Ithaca and Albany, and that's in green. We have our sanctuaries, which are the light gray with what looks like a little tree on a hill. And we have one coastal sanctuary in Guilford, and that's the one in blue. Nationally, we have 23 state programs, which is a lot. And we have 41 centers and over 450 local chapters. So this work is far-reaching. And I'll make another connection to that a little bit later on. So within bird-friendly communities, we have bird-safe buildings, and we also have plants for birds. And bird-safe buildings includes bird-safe glass or windows and a Lights Out campaign. But for this particular workshop, I'm going to primarily be focusing on our plants for birds. To get us started, let's talk about plants for birds. So before I talk to you about what you can do in your yard, I want to provide some context. Here is the big picture. This is from Audubon's strategic plan. When we think about saving birds, we need to think about their migratory flyways and protecting birds everywhere they go throughout their lives. Hundreds of species migrate throughout our flyway, which is the Atlantic Flyway, and through our community every spring and fall. And so that means that our yards are an opportunity to fill in the gaps for migrants along the flyway, and also to make sure that our breeding birds and our overwintering birds can succeed too. This beauty here is a wood thrush, and I'm sure that if y'all are up in Maine, you've definitely heard this one. But it's a bird whose beautiful song rings through our eastern forests, from suburban woodlots to expansive tracts of undisturbed forests. But our forests are growing more quiet as the wood thrush and many other songbirds are disappearing at an alarming rate. The story of the wood thrush is the story of what's happening in our yards, our neighborhoods, our local parks, and our workplaces, as well as what's happening in the larger ecoregion and in the tropics. But part of the solution begins right here in our own yards, and each of us can make a difference. So this map, Eva, can you see this map? You can nod. If you see it's a blue, great. I always want to make sure the map's actually showing. This map shows the breeding range of the wood thrush in blue and the winter range in orange. And the arrows show a typical migration route as discovered with tracking devices. The wood thrush has a loop migration. So it goes to East Coast, Florida, Cuba in the fall, Mississippi River Valley in the spring. And they breed in the understory of woodlands where there are tall trees. They nest most successfully in large, contiguous tracts of undisturbed forests, but they will also nest in suburban woodlots and city parks where there are tall trees. So though they face many threats in these environments, and often they won't produce successfully because of that, but they will, however, use any available green space to rest and refuel during migration. And that's an example of a space that they might want to land on their migration. The wood thrush is declining by 1.8% per year, with a cumulative decline of 55% over the last 50 years. And 41% of all neotropical migratory songbirds are declining, which is sad. Many other migratory forest birds are also in decline in North America, including our cerulean warblers, our black-throated blue warbler, and one of my favorites, our rose-breasted grosbeak. So what is causing this steep decline in so many different kinds of neotropical migratory songbirds? There are many reasons for this decline. These birds face threats during all phases of their life cycles, on breeding grounds, wintering grounds, during migration, and habitat loss is by far the greatest factor, more than 2.5 times more influential than any other factor. It's predicted that by the year 2100, over 450 bird species in the wild will be listed as vulnerable, endangered, or critical. The vital role of restoring habitat in urban, suburban, and rural communities is growing. Back in the 1940s, our country looked like this. Urban centers, especially in the eastern United States, were essentially isolated cores surrounded by small farms and open land. But just in the span of one lifetime, within the last 80 years, housing densities have exploded. And it's only going to get worse. This is the projected density of housing by the year 2030, a mere 10 years from now. And already we've lost a staggering 150 million acres of ecologically productive land to urban sprawl. We've taken what was once a rich, contiguous landscape of ecologically healthy land and transformed it into a sterile monoculture of turf grass lawns and decorative alien plant species. 43% has been developed into the suburban-urban matrix. And here's what those orange and red areas on the map that I showed you with the high housing density look like on average. You can see a lot of grass. And then, of course, we get to spend our weekends mowing the grass. Yay! Contributing to greenhouse gases. According to the EPA, nearly 5% of our greenhouse gas emissions come from lawn maintenance alone, just from lawn maintenance. In the US, there are nearly 50 million acres of lawn. We must change this paradigm. Most of the US looks like this, neat, simple, but a little bit lifeless. And this landscape was developed for convenience and to celebrate the lawn as a status symbol, but it was not designed to share with other living things other than grass and a few Asian plants. The landscaping industry and our own views of what a beautiful lawn is have been dominated by such things like decorative value. But we must balance this by adding back the values that nature already provided for free, such as food webs, soil retention, carbon sequestration, and frankly, in my opinion, a beauty unrivaled by any manicured lawn. I just love this. I think it's so pretty, and I wanted to show it to y'all. Simply by choosing native plants, no matter where you live, you can help sustain life. You can begin one plant at a time. That's what I've been doing. And you can ask your nursery or garden center for native plant alternatives to the standard alien ornamentals. Over time, reduce the amount of your turf grass lawn. Your native plant garden will help create corridors connecting and supporting larger natural areas. And that connection is really important. So native insects eat native plants. They pretty much only eat native plants. They're specialists, and for the most part, they can only eat the plants with which they co-evolved. The exotic plants that dominate the landscaping industry are for the most part unpalatable, so they don't taste very good to our native insects. And that brings me to what you can do in your yard, in our parks, and on our school grounds to transform these spaces into a bird sanctuary. We'll go through the birds' basic needs: food, water, shelter, and places to nest. And I'll go over what birds need throughout the year, because you will help them the most by planning for all seasons. And for inspiration, I recommend the book Bringing Nature Home by Doug Tallamy. He's an entomologist in Pennsylvania, and he's put numbers on why native plants actually matter. Native plants are not just important to hosts or important as hosts to insects, but many native shrubs and trees produce fruit with high energy and fat content. I was shocked when I learned this, which is particularly important for birds building up their fat reserves for fall migration. A recent study found that migratory songbirds consumed fruits from native plants like this dogwood at a faster rate than fruits from invasive plants. And the fruits of the native plants are of greater nutritional value to migrating birds than fruits of invasive plants. It's really important to note. Spicebush, for example, is a must-have plant for helping migratory birds. It's a super high-fat fruit. You wouldn't know it just by looking at it, but almost 50% of the fruit is fat. And if a wood thrush lands in your yard and there are spicebush berries, she has got it made. There's a lovely little mockingbird with some winterberry berries. A chickadee pair brings 390 to 570 caterpillars to the nest per day. Chickadees feed their young for 16 days before they fledge. So if we do a little bit of birdie math, 570 for 16 days is over 9,000 caterpillars. Can you imagine finding 9,000 caterpillars just to feed your young? And that's just one clutch. And if the insects can't eat the plants in our landscapes, then the food chain is essentially broken. And a world without insects is a world without biological diversity. To illustrate this difference, take a look at these two groups of trees. Our native oaks in the genus Quercus are the best trees for caterpillars, hosting over 530 different species of caterpillars, whereas the ginkgo, a commonly planted ornamental landscaping tree from Asia, supports only 4 species of caterpillars. And when you're a bird in search for food for your young, that can be a life-threatening difference. Research by Dr. Doug Tallamy has shown the importance of native plants by documenting the number of caterpillars hosted by each plant genus. This list shows the best native genera of trees ranked by the number of caterpillar species each group will host. Our message is quite simple. Choose the best for birds, plants, when you landscape your outdoor space. And then these two, I actually have 4 books that I put in this presentation that I wanted to show you that I personally find really helpful for reference. Bringing Nature Home by Doug Tallamy, like I mentioned earlier. His newest book, Nature's Best Hope. And then The Living Landscape, also by Doug Tallamy, is amazing. My dust jacket on my book is it's threadbare because I look in it so often. And then the Pollinator Victory Garden is also another really good one. And I can share these with Eva if she sends out an email after, or I could put it in the chat for you after if you're interested in any of those. And this is not just about birds. Native plant landscaping improves the health and well-being of people too. Having healthy green outdoor space is fundamental to the health of our families. It increases our physical health, reduces stress, and increases our mental well-being, saves money, saves time. There's just so many different benefits, and it restores ecosystem services such as pollination, photosynthesis, erosion control, all of which are provided for free by a naturally functioning habitat. Food, glorious food. Let's go over the food that these birdies need. So we have 4 bird food groups. First, we have nectar. And nectar is a sweet treat for hummingbirds. It attracts insect pollinators, and it's just really good food for birds. Then we have seeds, which are nutrient-rich, long-lasting. You can maintain your seed heads throughout the winter, and they also will harbor overwintering insects. And then we have berries, which the fat from those berries fuels migration, and not all berries are considered equal. And then there in the middle, we've got a lovely little sparrow. No, actually, we got a little birdie having himself a worm there for insects. But to go back to how berries are not created equal, all berries aren't created equal. If we take a look at this slide, you can notice that the berries on multiflora rows barely have 1% average fat content, where if you look at the spice bush, it notes 48.01%, or arrowwood by Burnham, gray dogwood. They all have higher fat content, which is really important in migration for our bird friends. And here's more information about that. The northern bayberry has 50.3% fat. So the type of berries that you're providing for your birds really does make a difference for them. And there are many benefits of berry-producing shrubs and trees, but let's not forget about our insects as well. Without native plants, we won't have those insects, and without the insects, we won't have the birds. So in each season, I'm just going to go over the different types of food that our birds like. So in the fall, we have fat-heavy fruits that lead to fuel long-distance autumnal flights. In the winter, tougher fruits that withstand the harsh winter to fuel cold bellies. Spring, an abundance of insects to rebuild muscles and prepare for nesting. In summer, sugar-filled fruits for overworked parents. Look at that lineup. Oh my goodness. And now I'm going to take y'all on a brief native plant database tour. I've included the website address here below. And then once I'm done presenting, I can also put it in the chat for y'all as well, because I'm sure you're going to want to explore it for yourselves. It's been designed, I'm getting tongue-tied over here. Native Plants Database has been designed to help people find answers and also to get involved. You simply enter your zip code here, and if you want, you can enter your email address. You don't have to enter your email address. It is really helpful if you do, though, because as you go through, you can email yourself the plant list that you curate while you're going through the database. So if you enter your zip code and your email address, you'll be able to receive that emailed plant list like I mentioned, and then you just click search. And once you do that, the database is filterable by type of plant, which you can see over here. We have selected annuals or perennials and vines, but you can select whatever type of plant you may be looking for. You can also search by type of resource for birds that it provides. If you want nectar, fruit, if you'd like for it to be a caterpillar, host plant, nuts or seeds, you can choose that. And you can also choose the type of bird that you'd like to attract as well. which I know a lot of people really like that feature. And then if you mosey on over next to best results and then full results, you'll see local resources. If you click that tab, local Audubon chapters are suggested for local support and guidance, along with suggestions of other local and regional resources such as native plant societies to help us get started on a native plant habitat for birds. And then further down on that page, you'll find an expandable list of local nurseries that supply native plants specific to where you are. I believe it's within 100 miles is what it does. And it's along, there also are online native plant retailers as well if you prefer to order your plants online. And now I'm going to take us to structural considerations. This is something I think that not a lot of people really think about, but it's really helpful. Each layer of vegetation supports different species, and thrushes and wrens, which feed in the soil and leaf litter, inhabit the ground layer. Hawks, swallows, and flycatchers keep a lookout for aerial prey from the overstory. And in between, woodpeckers, chickadees, hummingbirds, and finches find food and shelter among the shrubs in the understory. So these layers mimic a plant community, starting at the soil. You should not need to amend the soil. Ideally, you would be planting for the soil that you have. If it's rocky and dry, there's a plant for that. If it's clay-filled and slow draining, there's a plant for that. With exceptions being if you want to plant food in soils with toxins or heavy metals, in which case you'd want to use raised beds. The ground cover layer of grasses and sedges and leafy perennials are really good for stormwater management, erosion control, ground cover filler, weed and invasive control. And this layer can replace your mulch. If you think of it, you can think of it as green mulch. The seasonal theme layer, they're a little bit taller and usually have brighter colors, while the structural layer is taller still and grows in between the others, never in isolation. And as we proceed, I want to highlight two of the references that I used to inform this session today. And I also use, again, the living landscape for my own personal, reference as well. So this is not necessarily our goal. I know I've seen a lot of gardens that look like this. Many traditional plantings will have open soil and it allows sunlight to directly reach the ground. And this is a problem because it can raise soil temperature dramatically and lead to quick evaporation of plant essential soil moisture. Think of a green roof planting and the extreme conditions plants are exposed to there. If the roof media is exposed, it dries out quickly and surface temperatures can reach 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So many species don't survive such extreme conditions if planted in traditional masses or spaced too far apart. However, the microclimate and growing conditions improve significantly if gaps between taller species are filled with tough ground covering plants, such as sedge in this picture. The filled niche creates better growing conditions for more demanding species because surface temperatures stay low and moisture remains accessible for plant roots. Filling the ground niche benefits the entire planting. And as I move forward, the images, or the previous image actually, was from planting in a post-wild world. And I'll have more photos of that so I can show you. I'll point them out. Highly visible gardens favor structure and color. They're showy and more homogeny in structure with complementary colors. And highly functional gardens are less homogeny in structure and height and color. And they allow for unrefined plants. For example, Joe Pieweed is tall and floppy, and it's not really good to put next to a sidewalk. I learned that the hard way. But it's great for the middle of a meadow where other plants can help to keep it upright. And no matter what size your outdoor space, you too can add plants for birds. So this is large scale. This is someone who can have a whole meadow. And then we have smaller scale. And then even still smaller scale. This one has a lot more container plants in it. As we begin to think about the layers or physical structures and components of the habitats we're trying to amend, supplement, or create, let's review the basic requirements of a bird habitat. Native plants provide birds with 4 food groups, which are insects, berries, seeds, and nectar, as we learned earlier. And birds need clean water for drinking, bathing, keeping cool, and for maintaining their feathers all year long. They also need shelter for nesting, protection from the weather, and hiding spots for both predators and prey. Birds use natural and man-made materials to build their nests, so they need a protected place to nest and raise their young. These are the building blocks of a bird-friendly habitat. We just need to put them into layers. So now I'm going to branch over so you can see how what I do here in Connecticut ties into bird-friendly communities, because bird-friendly communities, it's a national program. Here we go. And so locally here in Connecticut and New York, we have Plants for Birds, Urban Oases, and Schoolyard Habitat, and it's actually going to expand a little bit more, I'm sure. But all of these fit underneath the umbrella of bird-friendly communities here in Connecticut. And we've partnered with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Uh-oh, can I go back? Sorry about that. We've partnered with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service closely in development of this program since 2012. And all habitats that are created are nationally designated, and they join a network of hundreds of schoolyard habitats across the country. So I'm going to briefly summarize how we work in the next few slides, but in a nutshell, you can see the bullets on the slide. The Schoolyard Habitat Program provides opportunities for students to use their schoolyard as a living outdoor classroom and to play leadership roles in the development of them as well. And so we're going to be connecting, or we do connect students with the outdoors and create a safe and accessible area, a green space for them to connect where it's needed most. A lot of the schools that we work with here are in urban areas, and a lot of the students have reported not feeling it is safe to go out to those areas to explore and play on their own. And so this gives them that space. Creating habitat and migratory bird rest stops in urban areas. And also inspiring the next generation of conservation leaders. Now under the Schoolyard Habitat Program umbrella itself, you can see there are many pieces that go into this program. Family engagement, school day programs, leadership development training, teacher training, habitat development and stewardship guidance, and so on. So in terms of creating habitat, over the academic year, we train teachers on how to use the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service project guide. We have a request for proposals. So, my cat's outside yelling at me, sorry about the distraction. Where schools will apply for mini grant funds. So we help them with funding to be able to plant these habitats. And we have a rubric process for choosing the schools. The focus of this is underserved schools. And we provide grants to schools to create those projects, like I mentioned, and to receive training as well. We offer this program on a fee basis as well for schools that can afford it. And you'll see on the left here, this is just like kind of a grassy little slopey area that was turned into this habitat here. This habitat has actually grown so much. The teacher that was in charge of it was slowly inching his mulching further out, and he kept adding plants to it, so it's huge and it's gorgeous. At the end of the school year, each school creates a habitat and they unveil, which they're nationally designated. They'll fill out an application, and then at the end, once their application is approved, they will receive a sign. And I mentioned that we train leaders and teachers. We have one training to prepare the school to take on the creation of the habitat project. And then we have several other trainings to work with the teachers to integrate it into their curriculum. So we'll have one where they will come to us, and then we have another where we go to them just to focus more specifically on what's outside of their very own school so that they know what they can incorporate into their lessons. And we also offer school programs, and they're all Schoolyard Habitat themed, often using lessons from our curriculum guide, which we have that available online. If anyone is interested in taking a look at it, I can provide the link for that as well, and for the project guide. And it's offered to ages pre-K through 8th grade with this program. Through this program, we also have created jobs for high school students. And they'll go in and support schools, especially the younger level schools where they may not be able to take on some of the maintenance. They'll go in and help them with that. We also have created opportunities to engage with families. We have planting days and pledges. And we give the students opportunities to be leaders, like I mentioned. One school asked their students what they wanted, and the students said, "We want a rainbow." And so the way they went about their habitat was they went through the native plant database and they found plants of specific colors that bloom at different times in the season. So over the course of the year, it's like they get to see a rainbow of color in their habitat, which was really cool. And that was student-led. And then here at the Franklin Elementary School, you can see this is their sign that they put out to welcome people to their Schoolyard Habitat. And they had different students draw the different little pieces of this picture, so they created their own signage as well. We also provide resources. We have a biennial conference, and we have online resources, and I can provide the website for our Schoolyard Habitat Knowledge Network for anybody that would like to peruse it and take a look, see what's going on. And we actually have 41 schools that participate in our programming across 10 cities, and we have 29 officially designated habitats, soon to be 30. Our 30th will come online in the spring. And we have 15 urban oases sites. And about 5,000 native plants have been planted, 30,000 students engaged, 350 teachers trained, and 5,000 volunteers have been engaged in stewardship with our program. And we work diligently to measure the impact of this program by administering pre and post program attitude surveys to teachers and students. We measure the attitudes about the environment. And we found that there's a direct link between how their teacher feels about going outside and about the environment to how the students feel about going outside and about the environment. And we'll also administer pre and post tests to the students as well, based on lessons that the teachers choose to implement. So it's a lot of different moving pieces, as you can tell, and we're able to do this because we have a new, well, it's not a new partnership, but we created a new type of refuge initiative to forge these connections between the National Wildlife Refuge System, natural resource conservation, and urban communities. So we are a part of the New Haven Harbor Watershed Urban Wildlife Refuge Partnership. I'm always proud of myself when I can say that without getting tongue-tied, because it's a doozy. Yeah, so we have a lot of partners here in New Haven to get these programs going and successful. And here are some of our partners here in New Haven specifically that is making this all happen. And before I wrap up, I just wanted to show you all some examples of a couple of our Schoolyard Habitat sites. This one is at Worthington Hooker School in New Haven. Before it was just a little grassy area, and now you can see they have done such a great job with their planting, and the school or the students will walk along the path. And they also added seating to their habitat as well that's not seen in this picture. And then we've had 2 schools so far who don't have any green space at all at their schools. And so they have planted in planters native plants so in their courtyards so that students can have access to safe green space. And that was really fun. This is an Urban Oases site at McGrath Park in Prospect. And the main difference between the Urban Oases program and our Schoolyard habitat sites are just that they're at parks and not at schools. So the curriculum component isn't there. But the restoration of habitat piece is definitely still the same. And that's just a piece of what our work is here in Connecticut. Before I hand it back over to Eva and then to Marlene, I want to reiterate that nationally we have 23 state programs, 41 centers, and over 450 local chapters, which is pretty powerful. And I want to thank all of y'all for being a part of that. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions a little bit later in the evening.
Thanks, Jillian, for that presentation. Next, we have our Bird Connection presenter, Marlene Pantin. Marlene is the Partnerships Manager at National Audubon Society. She is passionate about making green spaces wildlife friendly and accessible to all. Tonight, Marlene will speak a bit more about the Audubon program Plants for Birds. Marlene, thanks for joining us.
Eva, thank you. And I'm going to share my screen. Seems like I have a lot of screens open, but I'm going to share. So can you see that, everyone? Yes? Okay, cool. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Eva, for having me. It's great to be here. So I am so impressed with what Jillian did, I have to say. And I want to point out that the work that Jillian is doing, and by extension, Audubon, Connecticut, that work actually repeats itself across the country every day by our chapters and our centers and our state offices. Even the folks in Hog Island are doing work as well, right, around multiple issues related to native plants. And so that is something that they continue to work on and to share that information across the country. So when Jillian talks about schoolyard habitats and training teachers and leading even trainings, let's say with folks in their yard and teaching families how to use native plants, all of that is happening across the country. And that is actually part of the efforts we have to expand the focus on creating native plant habitats. That links up to our objective, which the Plants for Birds team has, which is to develop and expand native plant habitats across the country. And more importantly, I want to point out that that work that is happening across the country at the state and the local level, that feeds further into our mission. And our mission at Plants for Birds is to advance native plants at the local and the state level and in every backyard and windowsill in America. And I want to make sure to point out that windowsill part because we want to bring attention to the urban environments, as Jillian was talking about, right? That it's not just backyards, but the folks who have a windowsill or even have a balcony in an urban area, let's say like New York City, where I am, they themselves can help contribute to native plants. So therefore, everyone is carrying that message about of native plants across the country, as we can see that Common Merganser is doing, right? It's heading off to share that message. So that is what's happening there as well. So in addition to doing this, of course, we are finding ways to support the network. Yes, they're carrying the message, they're doing the work, and that's sort of the grassroots work that's happening on the ground. But we at the Plants for Birds team want to ensure that we support the network. And we do it in a variety of ways. Jillian mentioned the native plant database. That's one of the things that we have, that where you can get information about the best plants for your local area. And actually, Eva is going to share with you a link to a YouTube video we have. So in addition to the demonstration Jillian gave you about the native plant database, you can actually look at the video as well for more guidance. And it's only about a minute and a little over a minute and a half. So it will really help you to learn how to use the native plant database. But in addition to that, what we are doing to support our broader initiative around native plants is we have these resources such as the brochure on the left, the rack cards on the right, the upper right, and those actually are bilingual. So they are actually in Spanish and in English. And the birds, for example, on the rack card, it's editable. So you can change those and put in your own local birds. And inside of the brochure, you can even change the types of resources and such based on the birds that you have. In addition, we provide the Plants for Birds signs that many of our network members use. And it's a metal sign. There's even this short video about the importance of native plants that you can share with your community and with your friends, as well as examples of plant lists that other Audubon chapters and other individuals have used to provide folks with information about the best plants for their area. And I always think it's a wonderful thing sometimes to even share with your parks staff, because oftentimes they're shorthanded and they don't have the time to think about this. And so sometimes the parks departments will just put in any plant. So this is a way to share how they can substitute out certain plants for the best native plants. So there is a lot that is available as well. So the work that is continuing across the country at all of these different levels, we are ensuring that we can support them so that they can achieve that goal of expanding native plants. We also, as part of our broader initiative, we provide trainings. So we are always doing webinar trainings and other trainings around native plants as well to support the network. And that is available to folks like Jillian and anyone else at the chapters and centers and sanctuaries, and even state offices will join us as well. But in addition, we also provide grants. I just want to point that out. And with our grants, we actually have provided grants over the past couple of years to ensure that we can support the network as best as we can. And so one of the things we've done, as you'll see, is that through all of this work, oops, sorry, everyone, I did that. Yeah, okay. Through all of this work, we actually were able to, let's see. I seem to be getting an issue with my screen. So hold on one second, everybody. Let me shut it down. Can you still see my screen, everyone? You can, okay. I'm sorry, I'm having issues with my screen so that I can't see what I'm sharing. Okay, so it's always something technical happening here. Okay, so I am going to go on faith because I cannot see my screen at the moment while I'm home here. So, so here's what's going to happen. So anyway, yeah, thank you. Go back there. Oh, great. So in addition, what we have been doing is in providing all of these services, we have been seeing some success along the way. So Eva, can you see my PowerPoint slides?
You stopped sharing your screen.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
We were just seeing your desktop there at the end.
Yeah, I think my screen got dropped. Sorry, everyone. So let me do this again. Share screen. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes, looks good.
Okay, good. All right, let's see if this works. Okay, good. So what has happened is by providing all of these different resources, we have actually begun to see some successes. So one of them actually is that over the past 2 years, because of grants and other work that we've supported, we're able to have 51 high-impact demonstration gardens in 20 states across the country. And this was done by our chapters and our centers and our sanctuaries, right? And when I say high impact, I mean that these gardens were actually located in front of churches and museums and theaters and other high pedestrian walkway areas as well. So this is sort of the change, the ground up grassroots changes that we are seeing, right? By having, of course, more native plant habitats, birds that migrate can actually find food on their way. And so we are hoping one day that this entire map of the US will be covered with just multiple native plant habitats all along the way to support birds. But we have also been working in other ways to expand native plant habitats. So I just want to show you here before I forget. So here is a native plant garden that was created in Audubon, by Audubon, Pennsylvania, in the township of Newton. And as you can see here, they actually put this in front of a theater. And what I love about it, of course, I actually love this whole photo, but what I love about it is that they were able to provide multiple ways to engage everyone, right? So if you walked by, you could see all the different types of native plants, but you could also take a handout. You could take a flyer here that tells you more about the plants in the space. There are QR codes that scan codes that you could scan to learn more about gardening. There were other handouts as well. So this is what we consider to be high impact because it's in very public spaces and it's a way to educate the public about native plants. So this is what some of our network members are doing as well. But as we are working on this, we began to recognize that there were other ways that we could support the network. One of the things we were hearing is that folks wanted more easier accessibility to native plants. Yes, they were getting it from their nurseries, but they still wanted more choices, more options as well. And so this past May, we actually rolled out this new partnership with Bower and Branch. And Bower and Branch is an online retailer that works with many growers across the country and independent garden centers to ensure that the native plants that are grown, they are grown without neonicotinoids, or neonics for short. And that is a pesticide that has a derivative of nicotine and can be harmful to birds and insects and other pollinators. So that is one of the beauties of working with Bower and Branch. Bower and Branch, if you order from them, they will deliver the plant to your doorstep, or they will actually deliver the plant to your garden center, your local garden center. I just want to say that for now, because this is a new program, the plants are only available for the East Coast, but they will over time be rolling this program out across the country. But it is a wonderful thing to learn about and to know more about. And the good thing too is Bower and Branch is actually using the Plants for Birds native plant database to ensure that when you buy plants from them, Audubon branded plants, so when you go there, that's what you do, that those plants will be the ones that are best for your local area. In addition, one of the treats I like about Bower and Branch is that if you order a tree from them, they will come and plant it for you, which is great. So we do absolutely love this partnership, and we look forward to more plants being made accessible across the US. So that is another way that we're helping to support our network, and we will continue to work with Bower and Branch to expand the variety of plants that are available, to the size of plants that are available, and so forth, and maybe even seeds. But it is nonetheless something you can use in addition to your local nurseries as well. So this is one of the ways in which we are working to advance the expansion of native plant gardens across the country, native plant habitats across the country to support birds. But in addition, we have another objective as part of our larger mission. And so if we are creating things on the ground, we want to ensure that there is actually a structure surrounding that that can help to propel native plant habitats even more. And one of the ways we are doing that is through what we call PROs. And that is proclamations, resolutions, and ordinances. So we have been encouraging our network, our chapters and centers and sanctuaries, even our Audubon offices, main offices, state offices, to work on securing these things. And what's the difference? Well, a proclamation is simply used to raise awareness. You want folks to know what's happening. It's an easy way to educate the community about something, and in this case, native plants. It's actually temporary. So when you get a proclamation today, it's only good for whatever date it's signed for. But nonetheless, it is a way to talk about things and promote on your social media page and bring the community together for a celebration, maybe even have a signing as well. That is one way to do it. The other one, of course, is a resolution. So whereas a proclamation can be issued by one elected official, a resolution actually has to be issued by maybe a body, and it can be for a longer period of time. But I would say, of course, the granddaddy of them all, as we know, are laws. And that's what an ordinance is. So if our network was able to secure ordinances, then that would be enforceable. It would be in place. And so then it would be a wonderful opportunity to have, let's say, more native planting along state right-of-ways and on even federal properties and so forth, even locally, right, in terms of parks and so forth. So we have been working with our network to expand that. That is one of the broad projects that we have going on. And we actually have had folks involved as well, right? Many of our network members are involved. So what we are doing additionally, similarly with our native plants and our native database, another resource we're offering is that we created these foldouts. And we have a hard copy foldout, and we also offer them as a PDF document now. And so that folder provides information about how folks in their communities, you in your community, can come together, like-minded folks, whether they're interested in native plants, or maybe they're interested in something else slightly related to environmental issues or conservation. Even your librarian might have information about native plants and want to get involved, right? How you can come together to build your own coalition, your own group, and therefore also reach out to your elected official in order to secure a native plant proclamation or resolution. So as I said, the proclamation is easier. And for many of our networks, they've actually started on a proclamation. Some of them have moved to resolutions. And in some states, some of them have been lucky to even get some laws passed as well. So this is another way that we are working to broaden our scope around native plants to make sure that it's accessible at every level. And so we've had successes similar to our high impact demonstration gardens. We've had successes with our pros. So here I'm giving you two examples. On the left is Arkansas Audubon, and they were able to secure a proclamation from their governor, right? Asa Hutchinson. And that was just recently. And then we also have even the Valley Forge Audubon Society in Pennsylvania. They were able to obtain a resolution from their board of supervisors of the township as well in support of native plants. And so this is something that we are encouraging everyone to do. I want to mention that earlier this year, between late January into March, in spite of COVID, any number of our grantees were able to obtain 8 pros, and mostly proclamations and resolutions in support of native plants, and they still continue to obtain even more as we move along. So the more this is done, the more you can bring folks together to advocate for native plants brings greater attention. And if you can bring that legal might behind it, then it is even more important so that the work Jillian is doing on the ground can have even greater impact in her community as well. I would be remiss if I don't mention, as part of our broader initiative, we're also working with the campus chapters. So they themselves now, we've worked with 4 campus chapters as part of the broader Audubon campus chapter program. And so 4 of those campus chapters are working to create native plant habitats. And we're also beginning to train them as well to obtain proclamations on campus from their school official, so that those folks can bring attention to native plants on the school, college campuses, as well as, of course, what is happening with the traditional chapters. So to pull this all together is to say that, the work, as I said, that Jillian is doing on the ground, that Audubon Connecticut is doing on the ground, this is just one of a larger pie. And we at the Plants for Birds team and the program at Audubon, we will continue to work to support everyone on the ground to be able to accomplish our goals of advancing native plant use across all different municipal levels of government, and of course in communities, backyards, and windowsills. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Marlene, for that information about what's going on around the network. And thank all of you out there who are joining us tonight. I do have some questions that people have been dropping. And remember, there's still time to keep adding questions, but we'll get started with a question from, we'll start with Barbara. She asked, how can my birding friends who couldn't attend tonight's Zoom watch this later? Since we did have some technical difficulties getting this streamed over on Facebook, I did want to address this, let you know that we have recorded the presentation. So I will be uploading that to our Facebook page tomorrow, and people can view it there if they were not able to join tonight. But for Marlene and Jillian, here are some questions for you. One comes from Marcy. She asks, Jillian, will the books that you mentioned, like the Doug Tallamy book, would they be useful for parts of the Western United States or the Pacific Northwest?
Yes, especially the living landscape one. Again, I think it's probably my favorite. I'm plugging it because it's my favorite. But in that book, they actually have the whole U.S. covered in terms of recommendations for native plants. And it breaks down the different types of plants. Like if you want something that's more fragrant, if you want something that's shade tolerant or needs to be in full sun or needs a lot of water, it's a really great resource. And I definitely recommend that one for sure. Great.
Our next question is from Wendy. At the beginning of your presentation, Jillian, you were talking about the wood thrush. Is that an endangered species?
It's declining right now, so we're trying to prevent it from becoming an endangered species.
Great. We have another question from Lois about native caterpillars. Her specific question was what willow tree would attract them, but maybe more generally, what trees could you plant to attract native caterpillars to your yard?
So definitely, if you wanted more bang for your buck, I would say an oak tree is fantastic. It just supports, so in addition to it being a great caterpillar host plant, the acorns from it support so many other species of life. You can support squirrels, you can support chipmunks. I know blue jays love them. Lots of birds appreciate nuts from an oak tree. So I'd recommend an oak tree. There's also, depending on the amount of space that you have, if you prefer to have like a shrub, there's tons of different shrubs out there that will also support native caterpillar species. I guess it depends on the space that you're looking at and how large you want it to be. But there are plethora of options for you.
This question's for Marlene. If you wanted to have, you mentioned grants earlier, how would you go about finding information about those grants?
They can reach out to us directly if they choose to, because those grants operate at different times of the year. The Burke grants that we had been assigning for the providing for the past 3 years, that has now come to an end. But actually there is, I think within another week or so, the collaborative grant is going to open up, and that's small money. It's about $1,000, but nonetheless, it's a way to get you going. And then there's also grants that will be rolling out as well early next year. So feel free to reach out to us, and we can pass you on to the correct party for you to get more information about those grants.
Great. And what would be the best way to reach you, Marlene, if someone wanted to?
And my Audubon address, mpantin@audubon.org, Pantin. So M as in Mary, Pantin @audubon.org. And just make sure you tell me you were on the Hog Island presentation too.
Great. We have another question from the chat. They ask, in addition to native gardening, what about bird feeders? Are they helpful to birds?
Bird feeders are helpful to birds. I don't know that they necessarily need them. Ideally, we would be planting our bird feeders with our plants. Bird feeders are great for bringing the birds closer to us so that we can see them. But I don't know that they necessarily like depend on them for their bread and butter. They're definitely helpful in the winter months as well, I will say that. But they're, I think, more enjoyable or more usable for people bringing birds in closer.
We had Caroline ask, or actually she said that South Carolina has a native plant bed at the governor's mansion. I think this is a recent success story. Marlene, I don't know if you could elaborate a little bit about that.
Yes, so that just happened, actually. I got an email from Kim Brand, who's the director out there, about the native plant garden at the governor's mansion. And they've been working with the governor's mansion in the past as well to create these different native plant spaces at the governor's mansion. But it also shows you how elected officials are so invested, some of them, in creating those spaces. And I think, interestingly, with some of them, it's actually the wife, let's say, of that male elected official is the one who's into native plant gardens and so drags that spouse along to agree to support it. So that is what's definitely been going on in North Carolina and in other places as well. That just is so successful. And that is what we would consider to be a high impact demonstration garden, something that people will see as they go by. And I'm sure they'll be providing signage and other things as well to inform the public.
Our next question is from Jean. She says, can you recommend sources for bird-friendly, deer, unfriendly plants?
I can. I actually have some plant lists that I can share depending on where you're located. We do have some recommendations we can make for deer tolerant or deer resistant plants out there. Great.
And yes, thanks for dropping your email, Marlene, so everybody can, it's in the chat if you want to cut and paste it out of there so you can get in touch with her. And then Jody just mentioned that Laura Bush advocated for Lights Out program. So yes, I think you have to approach it from both sides to get the buy-in. Our next question is, what plants would be good for both birds and butterflies?
I just muted myself. I've been on a spice bush kick lately, so I would recommend a spice bush that the scientific name for it is Lindera bezoin, and it is good for the spice bush swallowtail, but also for any migrating species, it's going to have that really high fat content berry for them. It's beautiful. The leaves change in the fall. You get flowers on it. It's a great plant all around. So I would definitely recommend a spice bush. But there's others out there too. And if you look at, we have those plant lists like I was mentioning, but you could also refer back to the Living Landscape and they'll let you know if a particular plant is good for birds or for caterpillars or for both or butterflies.
Great.
I would think even a milkweed would be great too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, because the finches will use the fluff.
Yes.
And then the monarch caterpillars will munch on the plant.
I actually have a milkweed that I got from Bower and Branch that's been sitting on my fire escape this summer, so it was great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Marlene, earlier you shared some different brochures and handouts that people could, that Audubon has created. How would you go about requesting those if you wanted them for like your local Audubon chapter or for a local garden club?
So again, they can reach out to me by email and just let me know what they need. We also have access, if they don't have access to Audubon Works, where there are additional resources that they can download themselves, they can let me know so that I can get them onto Audubon Works. But they can reach out to us at the Plants for Words program, and we'll share those resources with them.
So Marlene is a one-stop shop. You can reach out to her about grants. You can reach out to her about brochures. Really, the whole Audubon team here is available for you for anything that you need. So definitely feel free to reach out to us. If you can't get Marlene, you can always email me and I can make sure that I get you guys connected. At Hog Island, we have been working on putting in more native plants. And I was going to share a new project. I know we have a lot of Hog Island alumni on the call. So I was just going to share a new thing that has happened over the summer. So here is a picture of our new outdoor classroom. This is part of when Steve Kress retired. This will be a native plant garden around this, and this will be a structure that we can use for teaching. So I just wanted people to know that things are still happening at Hog Island, even though we couldn't have programs this summer. We are doing lots of fun improvements, including planting more native plants and creating more outdoor spaces for teaching. So I just wanted to share that little highlight. And then, of course, over on Hog Island itself, our volunteer team, the Friends of Hog Island, have been hard at work adapting our gardens and landscapes so that they can be more bird friendly and native, though we still keep some of our gardens for our kitchen purposes, since we like to make our own food for some of our dishes that we have. But yes, I wanted to just share that a little snippet from Hog Island, things that are happening this summer. And the other thing I wanted to share that goes along with these presentations is because of this National Audubon Initiative, we actually created a week of camp called Creating Bird-Friendly Habitats. And when we ran it last year, we were able to have Doug Tallamy there. We run this program in conjunction with the Coastal Maine Botanical Garden that's nearby. And so I just wanted to let people be aware that if they want to keep learning and they want to come to Hog Island, you can actually do both. You can keep learning about native plants and learn from more Audubon staff like we had here tonight, and do that as a program at our facilities. So definitely check out our website, hogisland.audubon.org, and we have information about that Creating Bird-Friendly Habitats camp program, which always is a way to do a deep dive, multiple sessions about how you can transform your own yards or properties or even small containers into something more bird-friendly. And we're closing here on the end of the hour, but I do see that there's lots of resources that people have been sharing, including that video that Marlene mentioned about how to use the native plant database, lots of articles that Audubon has written. So I will try to compile those and have those up on the lecture series website, including the PDF, Marlene, that you shared that goes over the pros, so that you can use those in your own communities. And I see lots of other people have also been recommending some great resources in the chat. So I'll try to pull those out as well so that we can all have those to keep learning after tonight. But I wanted to, before we close out tonight, I want to give a huge thanks to Marlene and to Jillian for your time, your expertise, your knowledge. Now all of you have Marlene's email, so you can keep contacting her. Jillian is easily accessible at Connecticut Audubon, so you can reach out to her there as well. But thank you both for joining us tonight and sharing with our Hog Island community more about plants for birds and bird-friendly communities.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Jillian.
Marlene.
And next week, on Tuesday night, we will have our new speakers. On October 29th, we'll have a wonderful presentation by Jean Hall called Volunteering Through the Lens. It'll be about photography. And we'll have our Bird Connection speaker from Audubon Magazine, Sabine Meyer. So come and join us next week. It'll be 2 for 1, photography and volunteering in our presentation. And hopefully we'll have our streaming difficulties fixed. But regardless, you can always join us on this Zoom call. And that's the best way to register and make sure you have a place to see these presentations. And I really want to say thank you so much for your time and for being here. And I hope to see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks again.
Jillian, Marlene, thanks so much. Sorry for the technical difficulties earlier. Hopefully you have no issues with streaming this on Facebook tomorrow. Is that fine with you? I'll share the links with you in case you have anybody that wants to join.
Awesome.
And thanks everyone for all your comments and all your chat. There are so many wonderful, I don't know if you were looking, Jillian, in the chat box, but there's lots of great information in there and lots of wonderful questions and some curiosity about your cat.
My cat Linus, he was trying to get into the room. I closed him out and he was not happy about it.
Yeah. We started this call with Jerry. I don't know if Jerry's still out there with the cat on his back.
I saw that.
So we'll end our call. Yes, definitely. It was great to see all of you. Thanks so much for joining us at Hog Island, and I hope you all have a great night.
It's good to see you too, Steve Crest. I saw you back in 2018 on Hog Island.
Yes, Steve is here. Let me just, I'll unmute him if he wants to say hi. Well, I tried to unmute him. Well, maybe I couldn't. All right, folks, have a good night. Great to see all of you as always. Hope to see you next week.
Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
All right.